tonight with this 31 Days of Horror stream. Joe Drilling is here,
Howdy.
and Kurt
Good
Adam is here.
evening.
Howdy.
Hey, it's been a while since we've had Kurt on one of these streams.
It is.
Um,
It is a terrible thing, but it's
I mean,
been rectified.
I lured him in with the
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 lure
allure of
an
having a
offbeat Looney Tunes
conversation
game.
about Looney Tunes, which everybody likes.
Also,
to talk
your
about.
own presence.
Oh well. Flattery will get you everywhere. Let me make sure.
Nice.
All right, that's probably a totally reasonable volume for this. That's loud. Anyway, okay, so tonight I'm going to be checking out some Porky Pig's Haunted Holiday, which is a Sunsoft joint for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It was developed by a company called Phoenix Interactive Entertainment, which is
They done anything else I would have heard
I
of?
did some digging, and the only thing I could find was some stuff in the Giant Bomb wiki, where apparently they made a couple of Amiga games in the early 90s. And then they made this in 1995, and then they disappeared until 2008 and put out some Wii shovelware called Movie Studios Party, and they also developed one of those Pets games, Petz,
Oh, wow.
Pets Rescue Endangered Paradise, which came out in 2008.
This is not a recommended set of things you're giving us here.
No, usually when you say they put out some things on the Amiga, that, like, instantly makes me a little nervous.
Yeah.
Or they're British.
The thing is...
Right. Well, yeah, they're definitely British.
This is actually...
They're almost certainly British if they were doing Amiga stuff, but it's just a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, well, it's just weird, right, that they put this game out in 1995 and then disappeared and then put out some shovelware for the DS and the Wii 13 years later and then haven't been heard from since.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if is it actually the same place, or did they just do contract stuff undercover?
Yeah, that's possible. I was gonna say, did they start doing database software or something?
It's possible.
Like Infocom.
Yeah. I don't know. The thing about really pre-PlayStation, I think I often get nervous when any American or British developer is responsible for something. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be bad for sure, but like law of averages,
Batting average is not necessarily great.
indicates that pre-PlayStation console games that are made by Americans or Brits are like, it's like,
I mean, like, so Sunsoft has a pretty good track record, right? Especially like a lot of these, since I'm playing a Looney Tunes game, a lot of these Looney Tunes games that Sunsoft put out, they aren't great games by any stretch of the imagination, but they're mostly playable, right? Like,
right, but I feel like the one
Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle is a totally playable Nintendo platformer, and
that wasn't a Sunsoft game though. That was
sure was it not?
Yes, it was Chemco for
Okay.
sure. Like they did the Looney Tunes B-ball game, which is not a bad
The
sort
Looney
of
Tunes
arcade
B-ball
style.
game is probably the third best basketball game on the Super Nintendo, behind the two NBA Jam games.
Right.
It's actually
where does it sit in relation to Bill Lambier's combat
I
basketball?
mean, all like the old NBA Live games were fun in the day, but they're pretty hard to play. And Bill Lambier's combat basketball is kind of garbage.
Yeah.
But like Bugs Bunny's Rabbit Rampage was pretty good. That Tasmania, I think it's just called Tasmania, right? The Tasmanian Devil game, that was kind of playable.
Well, there was a Tasmania for Genesis that was done by Sega that was pretty good, but I don't know if there was the Super Nintendo.
I think they're different. There's a Super Nintendo one that you're like behind the back of Taz. It's almost
a
racing game, and you're running around collecting kiwis. Yeah, I mean, it's not a great game, but considering all the hot garbage platformers that there are for the Super Nintendo, like, it's totally playable. It's a lot of those games are kind of in that B tier of
Sure. Fraxia says 36 chambers of Super NES basketball.
I'm not sure that even if you count all the lives as different games that you'd be able to get to
It's like 7 chambers.
to 36.
I don't know. I feel like there were a fair. Like I watched a video. There's this guy on YouTube who does like sort of roundups of stuff like that, and he did like which Super NES basketball games are like still worth a shit kind of thing. And there were a lot, like there were way more than I expected.
That are still worth a shit, or that
no, just that like exist, not that are worth a shit.
Because I would say that the only 3 that are probably still worth a shit are probably the 2 NBA Jam games and Looney Tunes basketball.
I mean, that's probably true. I don't know. What about that NCAA one that Nintendo published like very early on to show off the Mode 7, where they're like, it's like they're playing basketball in like a blue void, but like the court like pivots 90 degrees or 180 degrees when you like cross the center line.
Yeah, I don't think I ever played that.
I mean, I'm told it's like it was playable at the time. I don't know how it stands up now, but it was the big like, you know, look at what Mode 7 can do. Look at this basketball court move around. You know,
I don't know how to grab.
But you know, actually,
Vine. Anyway, this game seems totally playable, and it actually looks pretty good. So that is my initial impression. Although I don't know how to grab onto Vine.
Hot take.
Yeah. But yeah. So I thought that this would also be kind of an opportunity to talk about some of the. Oh, there we go. To grab that Vine. Like some of the
Halloween-themed Looney Tunes games.
There's a lot of Halloween-themed Looney Tunes cartoons, right? That have.
You know, you mentioned it. The only one I could think of just off the top of my head was the one with the
orange monster.
Right. Yeah.
His name is Gossamer. You will address him by his proper name.
You know, the one with
hair-raising hair. I believe that's called.
I think. Monsters, the most interesting people.
Yes, that's the class.
Yep.
And then Joe mentioned Transylvania
65000.
Is that the one with
blood count?
Is that the one with Hocus Pocus?
Yes, that's the one.
Abracadabra.
So that came up. If you go back and watch our when Eric and I were doing the Let's Play Chrono Trigger, like an entire episode of our like Let's Play Chrono Trigger is dedicated to us talking about that cartoon for some reason. But I watched that today. Yeah, I watched that cartoon today. It's still hilarious. And actually a lot. Yeah, well, a lot of those cartoons, I was the Halloween sort of themed. None of them are like explicitly Halloween themed, but the spooky sort of themed ones.
There's several that are inspired by various classic horror novels or movies, right? There's like there's a bunch of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde ones. There's a bunch of
there's
a ton of ones. There's
So in the 80s, the thing that Looney Tunes was doing to sort of like make their brand stay relevant is they would do like some new bridging animations, but basically just take a shitload of old 6-minute cartoons and like package them thematically into a movie with these new bridging sections.
Right.
And they did this with like there was like 1001 Rabbit Tales, and there was the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie, and there was one that I used to watch all the time because my grandmother, I think, taped it off of HBO or something for me. It was called Daffy Duck's Quackbusters.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and it's basically Ghostbusters.
Is that the one that had the really awful like Night of the Living Dead parody or themed one, and the really bad like Exorcist theme?
I don't remember the Night of the Living Dead one, but I do remember the Exorcist one. Yeah, it's sort of, I always thought of it. I remember thinking of it as Ghostbusters because she like levitates above the, she levitates off the couch or whatever, and at that time I hadn't seen The Exorcist yet. Okay. So I thought of it as a Ghostbusters reference, but yeah, it's definitely an Exorcist reference. But yeah, it's got that one
called The Duxorcist.
Yeah, that would make sense. But yeah, it's got that one, and it's got the one which I think was actually just referenced to this. There was one sprite on the side of what you're playing that I saw for a second. The one where Daffy goes to meet Porky and acts like he's like a schizophrenic psychopath and does this thing where he puts in these big fake teeth and like messes up his feathers on his head and like chases after him. That's a good one.
That is a good one. Have you look at this idle animation where Porky looks at the camera and he like turns into Elmer Fudd for a minute because he doesn't have a pig nose anymore. He has a normal human nose, and it's really freaking me out. But there's this little bat creature that looks a lot like the bat from Transylvania 65000.
Yeah, he does. He looks like Elmer Fudd with like Vulcan ears.
Yeah. It's really. It's.
I do like that he sort of like freaks out and starts like biting his nails and chattering his teeth though when he's idle for too long. Although I'm really not sure what this game is going for because it's snowing and there are leprechauns and there are jack-o'-lanterns. So is
those
it
are all
like
things from Porky Pig cartoons? So
I
what
guess.
else do you want? Yeah, there's like a pot of gold that's shooting fire, and there's shoes, and I
Right.
don't know.
I'm surprised.
It's a horrifying, wintry Irish landscape.
Yeah. There you go.
I don't know where to go.
This game actually takes place during the Irish potato famine.
If you hold the if you hold the X button down, you can pan the camera around, which is kind of
Nice.
interesting.
Can you run so you can make? Oh, you have to bounce off the bat. I see. Okay.
I got up there, but I don't know where to go after that. I can't like make that jump. I don't.
Can you can't run or anything?
I don't. There's no run jump.
Not a run
button as far as I can tell.
There's also the cartoon where Porky, which I think this is mostly inspired by, the one where Porky ends up at the hotel where the mice are trying to murder him and Sylvester.
Oh god, that's so good.
Yeah, there's actually 2 of those. There was one that was made in the 40s, which is I think that one is called. There's one called Scaredy Claus, and then there's another one called Claus for Alarm, and they are both basically the exact same cartoon with the exact same premise. Where they're supposed to be spending a night in a hotel room, and Sylvester keeps freaking out. Maybe I have to use both of those bats.
Maybe.
I feel like
I like that Porky turns into like a smog monster, like
when you die.
when you die.
But yeah, so Porky wants to spend the night in that place, and there's mice that are trying to kill him and Sylvester, and he is unaware of the danger while Sylvester is freaking out. And
Right. And Sylvester saves
to keep
him on
him
several
safe. Yeah,
occasions.
right.
the first one of those is the better of the 2, although the second one has the evil moose head, where the mice.
Oh, the evil moose head,
and the moose
where
head
they
drops
drop it
down, and a shotgun comes out of its mouth.
Yeah, that is a quality cartoon.
Yeah.
A lot of those cartoons are. I went to the AFI Silver Theater up in Silver Spring like a couple months ago, and they were doing a program of old Looney Tunes in 35 millimeter, and
Oh, okay. I have to jump on
They're-
something. I see.
still hilarious. None of the ones we're talking about, unfortunately, but I went because they were showing my favorite Looney Tune, which is Duck Amuck.
Oh
And
man,
so
it's so
basically,
great.
like that got me in the door. Like I was like, I don't really care what. Like there were other good ones in the because they did like 6 or 7 of these like over the course of all of August, and they were like it was like a different set of cartoons every single time.
Yeah.
But I went to the one that was showing Duck Amuck because, like I said, it's my favorite 6-minute Looney Tune.
Yeah,
But they
most
still
of-
hold up wonderfully.
Yeah, most of the best Porky Pig cartoons are ones where he is opposite Daffy Duck, because Porky
Oh, yeah,
Pig
absolutely.
is like the ultimate Looney Tunes straight man.
Yeah.
Which that's also the role that he serves in those horror-themed cartoons with Sylvester the cat, right?
Right.
And Sylvester is also a great like wacky character. Like he's in a bunch of. There's at least one. There might be 2 Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde cartoons where there's like where he is a stray cat and Tweety is owned by a mad scientist, and he goes to try and eat Tweety, and Tweety ingests the concoction
Hyde
of the
formula.
doctor. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost all of the Oh, all right. Yeah, there's a digital "that's all, folks" when you die.
Nice.
Nice.
It's a little rough.
There we go. There it is.
All right, so I put in an invincibility code, so I'm going to turn that on now. And see if I can get a little bit farther here. But yeah, this game seems kind of playable. But yeah, there's a lot of great. I think there's 2 with Gossamer, right? 2 Bugs Bunny cartoons with Gossamer.
I believe so. I have the internet right in front of me, so I can find out.
But yeah, there's definitely a noticeable drop off in quality of. Oh, see, now it's not snowing here anymore. now that I continued.
Now that you continued.
What does this game have, like randomized weather or something?
Oh wow, yeah. There's wow.
Huh.
Suck on that, Madden. Porky Pig's Haunted Holiday was doing this shit in like 1993.
That's wild. That's super weird.
Let's see. First appearance, Hair Raising Hair, 1946, which is the one where Bugs plays the stylist and is like, you know. Let's see. Part of this was repeated in the 1952 Chuck Jones cartoon Water Water Every Hair, which is the one where Bugs is asleep in his rabbit hole and it floods and the flood takes him there.
And the Doxer sends the monster after him.
Right. Yep. Then he appeared, and then he didn't appear until Duck Dodgers and the Return of the 24th and a Half Century in 1980.
Ugh. You know, anything
then he was like
after like 1956 is mostly garbage.
Well, the Transylvania 65000 one is a 1963 cartoon.
Right,
and
that's one of the rare exceptions to that. It's not a rule necessarily, but there is a noticeable drop off in quality, I feel like.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the mid to late 1950s. Oh man, check out this rotating.
I think with Chuck Jones was the last of the sort of classic Looney Tunes directors to stop making Looney Tunes. I think I think once he like bowed out, that's definitely when like you're kind of like, okay, there's not really anything here anymore. Although, you know, an entire generation of people slightly younger than you and I have a really seriously misplaced love for Space Jam.
I can't tell. I feel like that's all ironic, right?
It's totally not. I work with people for sure who are like 5 years younger than we are, and they're like, no, man, Space Jam is awesome. And I'm like, no, it's not.
I had a Space Jam shirt when I was in like whatever grade I would have been when that came out, but I didn't watch it. I didn't wear it after the movie came out because of how bad the movie was.
Right.
I ate Space Jam, but that's as far as it goes.
You just hate it?
No, I ate it.
Oh, you ate it. Okay.
Yeah, I would have it on toast.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, I see. And I ate.
Well, so actually, this says that
the mess you left on the carpet.
That's right.
So 1963, I guess, is a good year to drop off because that's when the Warner Brothers cartoon studio was officially closed in 1963.
Okay.
So whatever was coming out
after
beyond that, I don't know where it was coming from because like whatever. 1976, he did an animated TV, some TV stuff. That he produced the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie in 1979, which is basically just a compilation of all his best shorts.
Right.
Bugs Bunny's Looney Christmas Tales, and then even newer shorts were made for Bugs Bunny's Bustin' Out All Over.
That's when Looney Tunes delved into like pornography.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I've never even heard of that. But yeah, a lot of the post like mid 1950s Looney Tunes stuff is a little rough, but yes, Transylvania 65000 is a notable exception to that, because and even that one, like the animation is weird. Like you can see that it's like being made in a much cheaper manner than the earlier ones. The animation's not as smooth and the lines aren't as clean. But that one gag where Bugs Bunny keeps turning him into a bat when he's trying to hit him with the rock and he smashes him like 4 or 5 times is pretty fucking great.
Yeah. It just keeps going, which is the key.
Right.
Well, but not like in a Family Guy way, right?
No.
Like it doesn't. The thing that what you're saying about it's actually funny, right? The thing you were saying though about the quality of animation is like these cartoons they use like I've seen it. I saw a documentary about the old Warner Brothers cartoons, and they were saying like for those 6-minute cartoons that they were making in the 40s and 50s, 60s, early 60s, they used as many frames of animation, as many separate animation cells as like a cartoon in the 80s or early 90s used for a half-hour episode.
Right, and you can see like the difference is obvious.
Right.
Well, I think one of the main things that I always found sort of made a difference was that I felt like newer cartoons, whether they're Looney Tunes or whatever, shifted from sight and animation kinds of gags to verbal gags.
Right.
For a lot of things, or
Writing's
at least
a lot cheaper than animation.
Focused more on that, yeah. And so you had sort of less, then they had less to do with the animation.
Yeah, I watched. There's on the
trick.
Looney Tunes DVDs. There is some commentary tracks, and one of them is on the Great Piggy Bank Robbery, starring Daffy Duck, which is another one of my favorite cartoons. Daffy Duck is my favorite Looney Tunes character, like by far. So
somehow that doesn't surprise me. That seems
yeah.
Roadrunner Coyote cartoons are the best of those. Are the best of Looney Tunes.
I do love those too. But the Great Piggy Bank Robbery is the one where Daffy Duck gets hit on the head and imagines that he's Dick Tracy, or sorry, Duck Tracy.
Right.
And there's a commentary track on that one on one of the Looney Tunes DVDs with John Crickfalusi, who did Ren and Stimpy. And he's talking about, like, there's a scene where Daffy does something ridiculous. And he's like, if you slow this down and watch it frame by frame, there are so many different varied expressions on his face that you don't even necessarily catch, like, just watching it at full speed. But, like, they're there. And I noticed, like, one time and one a different time. But, like, there's such craftsmanship that went into these cartoons.
Yeah, well, they could spend the time and the money.
Right. Well, they were also theatrically released at that time too.
Yeah.
Right. Like they were,
a totally different world.
Phraxia says all of you are right, but Eric is the most right about Looney Tunes.
All right, I appreciate that.
It's true of a lot of things as far as Eric is concerned.
Like, I've never played the Sega Genesis games, but the Roadrunner Coyote Super Nintendo game is actually totally playable in a way.
Death Valley Rally.
Yeah.
It's okay. I don't know.
It's not good, but it's not as bad as it's not. There's like.
It's like on par with a later Sonic the Hedgehog game.
Well, there's.
Wow.
I mean, I guess.
Really?
I don't even know how to qualify that in a weird, but.
36 Chambers of Hell.
But, I mean, there's like your Super Mario Worlds and your Super Metroids, your top tier sort of games, and then I got a weird bucket that's making me. Oh, it's making me float. Okay. Porky has a really weird expression on his face while he's fighting.
That's not an unusual thing for
Porky.
Porky
Some
to
of the level design in this game is a little weird because. Oh no, I'm just falling forever. Okay, so if I get more cupcakes if I do this more carefully. But, I missed it.
How many times have I said that?
Yeah, right.
If I had a nickel.
Logs, better I can collect more cupcakes. I wonder if you get an extra life if you collect enough cupcakes.
Probably.
It seems appropriate.
I feel like you should lose a life because you, like, die of a grabber or, whatever.
Oops, I missed the door. Let me get to this next door. I'll see if I can get to one more area, and then I'm gonna shut this down. And we'll
switch over to some Overwatch.
Going maybe, but yeah, there's some like basic problems with the level design in this game, which I think is its biggest problem. Is that I don't know if you saw, but in that second stage I was in, there were those big totem poles in the background. And some of those you can walk through, and some of you can't. Some of them you can't, and there's really no indication when one thing is true and the other thing isn't. So, like that's basic. That's like a pretty big flaw. I feel like sometimes there's an arrow that points the way when you can go through, but check out this boss.
Oh, wow. I remember him from. I remember that weird Ghost of the Top Hat from all kinds of classic Looney Tunes cartoons.
Like one really old Looney Tunes cartoon. Like, was he in what was there was like a 1930s Porky Pig cartoon that was a horror based sort of thing that I cannot remember the name of now. But
I really, truly, sincerely don't recognize that ghost at all. I was being totally sarcastic.
I think this ghost is from that cartoon, but that's one of the old
I think you can only damage him when his hat is off.
You think so?
I think so.
You have to hit him. Do you think to?
You have to hit him in the head when the hat is off, because the hat. See, he doesn't seem to be losing little ghost things.
I'm wondering if I have to hit him on the hat to make him take his hat off. I don't know. Whatever. I'm invincible. What do I care?
Yeah, that's true. There's something. Oh, I feel like if you grew up with the NES, you think of Sunsoft as like a classic treasured developer. If you grew up with the Super NES, you think they're like just kind of okay and whatever. And if you grew up with the PlayStation and N64, if you even remember Sunsoft, you're like, why are they terrible?
Yeah, well,
like why would anybody care about Sunsoft at all?
No, his eyes turned red. Yeah, that is absolutely true. Everything I said about Looney Tunes games being generally pretty playable ends as soon as you transition off the Genesis and Super Nintendo to the PlayStation and the N64. All of those 3D Looney Tunes games are just absolute bottom of the barrel garbage.
I'm trying to think of even one that's even like remotely playable, and I can't.
There's like a
think
Duck
of...
Dodgers game for PlayStation and Nintendo 64 that's really bad. There's a Bugs Bunny something that's also really bad. You walk around and collect carrots. Those are like sub Blasto like type.
Well, none of them have Phil Hartman.
Don't make my heart hurt. I wanted Blasto to be so good because of Phil Hartman, and it's so not.
I went through that with Blasto and also that Pitfall game that had Bruce.
Yeah.
Well, the Mayan Adventure.
I think.
Or is that the Super Nintendo one? Oh no, it's Pitfall 3D Return to the Jungle or something.
Yeah,
like
some shit like that.
Yeah, that's the Bruce Campbell one. There is actually a good game starring Bruce Campbell on the PlayStation, though. It's called. I own a copy of it, and I can't remember what the hell it's called.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of any.
It's Helix, Broken Helix.
Yeah, that game's okay.
Broken Helix. It's sort of like a weird adventure game, like
the Looney Tunes games. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's been a real long time since we've had a decent Looney Tunes game. This is not horror related at all.
It's got the two-headed vulture from the Transylvania 5000
yeah, I guess.
cartoon.
And then there's like the wacky guy and this like that dude, the dude that looks like he's in jail.
Yeah.
Like that's from that's another character from
that's
a really
Porky's and the weird thing beeping its own head that's like also a bicycle horn.
Right.
There's also from that Porky's Adventure in Wacky Land, I think that cartoon is called or something like that. That's a black and white cartoon.
Right, yeah, that's like some of these are. I definitely do appreciate like the depth that they're going to.
Yeah, there's some deep cuts for sure.
But yeah, I
still don't recognize that ghost though.
This game, it's okay. I think this is worse than the Bugs Bunny. What the hell was it called?
Crazy Castle?
No, not Crazy Castle. The Rabbit Rampage. Was probably the star of. It looks like I have to go this way.
The sort of like adding insult to injury is that like Konami was doing Tiny Toons games during this same time frame, and those games are way better. I
don't know. Rabbit Rampage is pretty good on its
own. But like Buster Bust Loose and Buster's Hidden Treasure on the Genesis are both like
pretty good.
Really sort of top tier.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever played
2D platformers.
I played the Super Nintendo versions of those, and they're not.
Yeah, Buster Bust Loose is one of the is the Super Nintendo.
Is it the same or?
They're different. They're different.
Okay. There's a Looney Tune or a Tiny Toons. I can go down this well. There's a Tiny Toons like Olympics style thing.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty good. It's an okay one of those.
Right. Better than like the Snoopy one for.
I think it's better than a lot of the like This is not saying a lot, but it is also better than a lot of the Olympics branded games that came out.
That is not saying much of anything.
Although now isn't like Sonic and Mario at the Olympic Games like the standard bearer for like sort of goofy Olympics things, and those games are like not bad. I'm told. I've never actually played any of them.
I think the last one of those types of games that I played was in fact
the Tiny Toons one.
But yeah, I actually think that Looney Tunes basketball is probably the best of the Looney Tunes branded games.
I believe the proper name is Looney Tunes B-Ball.
B-Ball, yeah. My favorite character was Sylvester the cat because he had a dope backwards hat. Which reminded me of Woody Harrelson from White Men Can't Jump, which was one of my favorite movies at that time. So.
and the game based on that is utter trash. So
Yeah, yes, the White Men Can't Jump game is not very good. But hey, I found an enemy based on the moose head from the actual Porky Pig horror cartoon. So I think this is a good place to leave off. I would have liked to have seen more of the bosses. This game, actually, like I said, totally playable B tier.
Perfectly cromulent game.
Yeah, some of the fact that some of those walls you could pass through and some of them you can't. It's a little fucked up, but
I don't know. I think the fact that you had to turn on an invincibility code to make it like.
Well, to be fair,
says something about the quality of the
same
game.
Time, so
I guess.
I
mean, this looks like it's better than Lawnmower Man. I watched you play that, and that looked.
Did you watch some of that?
Yeah,
that game's a little rough.
Oof.
That game was surprisingly playable, but not good in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what that little dog is. All right, I'm gonna stop this, and then we'll switch over and play some. But hey, Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes are great. There's at least 6 or 7 all-time great Looney Tune shorts based on classic horror themes. I think the 2 Porky Pig ones and Transylvania 65000 and the first Gossamer Bugs Bunny is probably my top 5 of those. But
yeah,
I don't really like the witch too much. There's a lot that have to do with that witch.
Oh, that's right.
Witch Hazel.
Yeah, and I never really thought that those were that great.
Which, like, that was the easiest joke to make, like, in the 40s and 50s, because Disney and MGM and Warner Brothers all had a witch character named Witch Hazel.
Okay.
In that time frame.
Put it on your face when you have. What's Witch Hazel good for? Is that good for? I think it's good for. Is it hemorrhoids or is it warts that Witch Hazel?
Warts? I wanted to say warts.
I thought it was something. I don't know.
It's probably good for everything.
Yeah, it's probably said it's good for everything, and it's not actually good for anything.
Yeah, it's good for nothing.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can use it for this. It's all placebo bullshit.
All right. So are we gonna end the stream and restart it? All right. Bye, everybody.
But yeah, hey, this is a video game. Bye.
Sure is.